In this lesson, I want to walk through how to develop and defend the proposal of your thesis or dissertation to your committee members. By the end of this lesson, you'll understand the process of your proposal defense, the format of the proposal defense, the components you can include in your presentation, as well as tips for how to design the presentation of your proposal. And then the next steps after your proposal defense. Let's first discuss how to prepare for your proposal defense. It's important to understand that ASTE 6100 or 7100 helps you prepare the first 3 chapters that are your proposal. And you must defend this proposal to your committee members before you can conduct the research that will help you write the thesis or dissertation. It's important to seek advice from your committee chair on dates and times to consider when to schedule your proposal defense. Your committee chair may hold historical information regarding best dates and timeframes based on your committee membership to conduct your proposal defense. It is a good practice to send an email notice to committee members that includes a link to a doodle poll that has several times and dates to conduct the proposal defense. Simultaneously, it's important to have discussed the facility location of the defense proposal with the respective ASTE office manager. So include Lizelle Allen in those dates and times so that you'll know what facilities are available. If you do not receive a common date and time for all committee members to attend, then send another email with additional dates and times in the doodle poll. You continue to repeat this process until you're able to secure a common date and time for all committee members to attend. Keep in mind that your committee members need a minimum of 2 weeks to read the proposal. The proposal meeting is typically 90 minutes in length. So I always schedule for 2 hours with the idea that only 20 minutes of that is your actual presentation and the rest is available for discussion of the proposal with the committee members. Once you're able to confirm the date and time with your committee, immediately forward that information to Lizelle Allen so she can reserve the facilities needed for your proposal. If you are working at a distance, this is a possibility in that you zoom into the proposal defense process, but you have to make sure that Zoom would be available on the computers. And if you can use a conference room that would allow a television set so that all committee members can be looking at you and corresponding with you during the defense. You have the entire proposal in a Word file or a PDF file with all of your appendices delivered to your committee members 2 weeks before your defense date. The best way to deliver this information is by you attaching the proposal in an email with the details about the proposal defense and sending it to your committee members. The location of your defense is important for the ease of the proposal defense process. The closer it is to your committee's work location, the easier it is for your committee to make arrangements to attend the proposal. Also, consider locations that are conducive for other faculty, not on your committee, to attend. I always take in consideration buildings that have conference space tables, ease of parking, and the ability to have good computer systems with internet access. The equipment typically needed for your proposal defense is a laptop or desktop computer and an LCD projector. But again, checking the setup of your room and facilities can answer questions such as the following. Do I need to bring an extension cord so my computer can be plugged in? Does the facility have a laptop computer and LCD projector? Do I need to be shown how to operate the equipment? And do I want to have a clicker so that I can advance the slides without standing at the computer? You may be sick of reading your entire proposal over and over by now, but you need to keep everything fresh in your mind for the defense. I actually read my proposal multiple times during my final 2 weeks and came up with my own list of questions I thought my committee would ask me. In addition, I also came up with a list of questions I had of my own, questions that I was unsure of or that I thought were weaknesses of my thesis proposal and of my dissertation proposal. And if you can't come up with a good list of questions, then you're not trying hard enough, and you need to talk to your chair about the possible questions that could be asked during that defense. You do not want to be caught off guard. Even though my committee didn't ask me my exact list of questions, that process of coming up with my own list of questions, then finding the answers to those questions, actually helped me gain a deeper understanding of my project, and it gave me a confidence booster because I really felt like I was an expert able to discuss the project in a way that would help improve the research design, the questions, the research problem, and really help understand what it is I was doing for those committee members that were meeting maybe for the first time together. Assume that everyone in the room is familiar with the study because they've all read your proposal. It's not necessary to go over every point in detail. Rather, it's your task to highlight the internal cohesiveness of your document with an overview of the context, literature, and methodology as they pertain to your study. Few words, large font, and a simple slide presentation is the norm, rather than colorful, pictorial, or animated presentations. Let your ideas carry the day and not your media ability. Most committee members will read a proposal in one of two ways, either from beginning to end in a linear pattern, or start with the methodology section and proceed backwards, reading the literature review second and the introduction last. Scenario 1. If your committee reads your proposal from beginning to end, then the introduction must read well. When you are just becoming familiar with the research at hand, it is important that this chapter is short and informative. As if the chapter is overly or verbose and is not straight to the point, you may lose your reader right at the beginning. Your committee members read the literature review, trying to gain more insight into what is being researched as well as for details of your topic and what has been researched prior to your study. Instead, all too often, they may find long treatises on a subject. And approximately halfway through the chapter, attention may lag and the reader may become wondering, what does this have to do with anything? Continuing on to your methodology chapter, some, if not all, of these questions may be answered. But there is also a likelihood that your reader instead gets caught up in the methodology issues. Unless the 3 chapters are very tight, if your committee is reading a proposal from start to finish, there will be places where attention will lag and questions and judgments begin to come in. You want to avoid this to the fullest extent that you can, because at this point, your committee members are likely to be filled with ideas for revisions, they're ready to focus on specific areas of your document, and their attempt to help make it a little stronger. The second way to read the proposal is to start with the methodology chapter and get a really good handle on what the person's methodology is and how the person intends to apply it to the topic. If this is the case with your committee, your methodological choices need to be airtight. Your writing needs to have avoided the pitfalls of over-reliance on quoting various authors. You need to convince your committee that you're ready to collect and analyze the data without much further support. This requires your discussion to seem mature and logical. Your committee members then move on to the literature review with a critical eye on whether and to what extent it backs up the need for and illuminates the ideas behind your methodology. Hopefully, your discussion of the prior research leads to a natural and easy to understanding of the methodological choices exhibited in your methodology chapter. Equally important is that your writing demonstrates maturity of ideas and a critical analysis of the work on which your study is based. Finally, your introduction should back up everything the reader thinks they understand from having perused the other chapters. At this point, your proposal either makes complete sense or it doesn't. And to the extent that your committee members are logically minded individuals, they should be well prepared at this point to offer succinct and targeted comments about your proposal. Ordinarily, the chair will lead the proposal defense and will also note for the record any decisions or recommendations made. However, the chair may wish you to take the leadership role and to make your own notes during the defense. Discuss this matter with your chair to understand the format before you walk into the defense. I want to discuss what you need to bring to the proposal defense. You need to bring a copy of your proposal, as well as a notebook to write committee members' comments, and your PowerPoint presentation. After your presentation, you typically sit down in the room and discuss the proposal. Committee members, other than your chair, will usually ask questions. It could be about your problem, the relevancy, the theoretical framework, literature review, components that they feel are lacking or that are strong. They may ask you questions about your methodology, your sampling strategy. It's really to make sure they understand how is this proposal going to be carried out and the research collected to answer the research problem. You need to be able to refer to specific sections of your proposal to help answer those questions. You may need to back up to specific slides to discuss components of the presentation and make sure that they have answered their questions. You may also want to think about copying a set of your PowerPoint presentation slides with you so you can look at them and talk about them and have them in front of you during the presentation so you know what to kind of expect is ahead and behind you as you talk. The proposal presentation provides an opportunity for you to prepare and present the research topic you're proposing for your thesis or dissertation. The format is one of a presentation followed by discussion and suggestions for the student. This is not an examination. So your defense will begin with a brief oral presentation under 20 minutes consisting of an overview of your proposal. You should provide an introduction, outline the major research questions or objectives, and discuss the study's methodology. Your presentation will be followed by questions from the thesis committee on the proposed research and any relevant background material. The defense is likely to include discussions on how the research plan might be improved. At the end of your defense, you will be dismissed for a short period while the chair and the thesis committee discuss your performance. You will be invited back into the room and you will be told whether you have successfully defended your proposal or if you have failed to defend it. Then they'll outline the next steps. If you've successfully defended the proposal, that doesn't mean your work's done. That means you might still have revisions and things to change, but you have done enough work to justify the committee approving of the proposal. So you'll meet with your chair make corrections before you can be submitted to the university's institutional review board for approval to collect that data. If you fail your proposal defense, they'll most likely tell you what you need to improve, how you need to go about doing the work, and then you'll have to reschedule a defense proposal date. Now, I have never experienced this in my time in academia, but I would hope that your chair would have you prepared well enough to not experience it, but may just have to guide you through revisions requested by the committee members. Let's move on and talk about how to create the presentation so that you can discuss your proposal in a succinct 20-minute time period. One of the best ways I would say to prepare is to have a PowerPoint presentation with a certain number of slides that will outline your proposal. And here are some possible slide headings. You'll need a title page, an introduction, background, a theoretical conceptual framework, a problem statement, the purpose, research objective, questions, and then quite a few slides on the methodology, addressing the research design, population sample, instrumentation, data collection, possibly the data analysis, possibly the references, and then lastly, a thank you slide. So I want to walk through each of these different slide headings and telling you a little bit about the type of content you could include on that slide. So on the title slide, make sure you have the title of your thesis proposal, your name, the department's name, your program of study, and maybe even the date of the thesis proposal defense. It really just depends on the structure and layout of the slides. You'll need an introduction slide. You'll want to make this short and specific. So many a times you'll see students just clearly state what the study's purpose is. And it's usually 1 to 2 sentences long and clearly states what it is that the student is doing for the thesis research. Then you need to go back and provide some context for your study. What was the trend, the new development, the problem that has influenced your study? Give a little bit of that background about your topic that will help put context to what it is that you're actually doing. Then you'll move to your theoretical and/or conceptual framework slides. And you'll just really briefly review the theory or the conceptual framework that ties your problem statement, your research objectives, and your instrumentation and the methodology together. And many a times you will see this illustrated through visuals rather than a lot of text-heavy content, because it's easier to look at a visual and listen to you explain the concepts on the slide. That's a huge component. As a committee member, I want to truly understand if you know what it is you're doing, why you're doing it, and what has already been done, and how you're taking that past information and improving your own study. Then you need a problem statement. You need to clearly and explicitly state the reason you're doing your study. Then the best thing to have after the problem statement would be your research objectives, questions, and hypotheses, where it's the research problem that is guiding you to have these questions. I use a numbered list for my objectives, questions, or hypotheses, and then I like to use boldface font to highlight a key word from each of the research objectives or questions, what it is you're actually doing. So on this slide, we boldfaced farmers' interest in resources and training needs, test the theory of planned behavior, predicting intentions. We're looking at relationships of demographic and farm characteristics and participation of FTS programming. It's just a really great way to bring attention to important concepts that you want your committee members to remember. For the methodology section, this could be several slides, and I'm going to just break it down into the topics that you should address. You first need to define which research design you will use. So if you're using an online descriptive survey, talk about that methodology and why it's appropriate for addressing your research objectives, your questions, and your research problem, and that it's the best method or the best possible method to use. You also want to talk a little bit about your population and your sample. So give the number for your population, talk about your sample, how did you derive your sample, how were they selected, what are their demographics, what are some of the I or B considerations, are you offering them incentives to participate, is it an opt-in panel that you're buying from Qualtrics, are you serving students from specific school districts? You need to really just be able to describe who it is that you're trying to access to collect data from. For your instrumentation slide, you will not have as much content on the slide, but you'll need to talk a lot more about it. So you'll want to review sections of your instrument and what they're measuring, and then talk about panels of experts for establishing face and content validity if it's a survey or an instrument. You'll want to also talk about possibly pilot testing, so that then you would establish reliability. You'll talk about how you're going to establish reliability of your instrument constructs, so that that's something is it done because it's pre-existing instrument that already has great reliability, or are you doing something with the pilot test to get reliability Chromebook alpha scores, or are you doing it post hoc, and why are you doing what you're doing? You also need to spend a great deal of time discussing the procedures for how you're actually going to collect the data. So how are participants going to be contacted? How often are they contacted? Are they given an incentive for participating? If so, how is that going to be handled as part of the data collection process? On this slide, the student's using an online survey, and so they're using Dillman's tailored design method, which is considered an exceptional methodology for our procedure for collecting data through mail, internet, and mixed mode surveys. Now, to wrap up everything, it's nice to just have your references listed, and you only list the references that you actually cite in your presentation. You don't include all of the references from your thesis proposal. 1 or 2 slides should be enough for your references, and you don't actually discuss the references. You just say, and enclosed on this slide are references to the content in my presentation. It's just to make sure you're giving credit to those you cite by including them in the reference list. And then you wrap up the presentation with a thank you slide. You want to thank your members for listening to the presentation, and then invite them to ask questions. And a lot of times what I do is I'll do something like simple messages like thank you and questions. It's an easy way to do a transition into the discussion of your thesis proposal following your presentation. So some tips I have for designing the presentation would be to use good bullet points with clear, concise information that are not written in complete sentences. You want to use short phrases with only 3 to 5 points on a slide. You don't really want more than 7 lines of text, and no more than 7 words per line, just to make it easy for reading. If there's more than about 49 words of text, it's going to become cumbersome because you're asking your committee members to read your slide and listen to you simultaneously. And while it's possible, you could lose their attention on something. So keep it simple and really let your talking be what drives the presentation. You can also highlight text to emphasize important words. Use boldface font, use colored font. But I do want to say keep it simple for the actual slide design. So avoid slide transitions, animations, sounds, anything that could be distracting to the viewers. And select a nice conservative layout that is professional. I like to use a sans serif font. That's one that doesn't have the little lines at the ends of all the words like Times New Roman has. So I use Source Sans Pro, Arial, Abadi, just because it's easier to read on a slide since it's on a screen. Those sans serif fonts appear cleaner and are not usually as blurry. You'll want to also think about your font size. I suggest headings are at least 44 points for titles. Here on this presentation, I'm using 36-point font for my headings and 28-point font for the body copy. That way I'm not having to have anybody squint in reading. And how do you become confident in delivering a presentation? Well, you prepare note cards to use as cues. Some individuals will color code note cards by section. For example, introduction, problem statement, population, sample, data collection, data analysis, and practice as much as possible. You could also use the notes feature in PowerPoint to draft your presentation and then practice in front of a mirror, in front of your friends and family, practice on a webcam or in a meeting room, ask for people to ask you questions that they may have during the committee's presentation. And when you give your presentation, you should not be reading from a set of notes. You should also be able to give the presentation without any type of reading the slide verbatim. Without notes, you're demonstrating to your committee that you have an in-depth understanding of your proposed research, and a spoken presentation should be a simplified version of a more elaborate written proposal. It should present the big picture and introduce themes rather than going into minute details that your thesis proposal chapters have done. Spoken presentation should be more natural and conversational and not sound like you're actually reading a script. Be prepared to give your talk even if technology fails. If your text that doesn't look quite right on the screen, or you forget your flash drive, or there's a power outage, or half the audience can't see the screen, you should still be able to make an effective presentation. Bring out your notes, bring out a printout of the slides, and just speak from those as well as you can, just glancing down when necessary to give yourself visual cues of where you're at in the presentation. Now, after you deliver your presentation, there are a few other things that you're going to do during the defense. So I want to talk about a few of those. So once you're done with your thesis proposal presentation, your committee members are going to ask you questions. They again are going to push you to your limits. You will meet a point where you don't know an answer. Also, a question they ask could simply be a future direction or an experiment that you simply haven't tested yet. So remember that your committee members are simply trying to test your knowledge and humble you. You don't have to know all the answers. Therefore, when you're answering questions, be cool, be relaxed, be confident. Answer your questions honestly. And you should have no problem passing. If you don't know the answer to a question, communicate that you'll need to look up that information and get back to your committee. Make a note of it and then remember to really follow up. Depending on your topic, it's reasonable to expect to be closely questioned on your methodology. You can prepare for this by double and triple checking all of your questions, your methodology, your outcomes, your problem statement, the literature, making sure it ties back to what it is you're studying and how you're going to study it. Remember that you've written your chapters and sections as separate pieces, and this defense ensures that they've become one integrated whole document. You can save yourself some time at the end by doing a lot of the upfront work and massaging all of your content between the chapters so that your problem is evident, it is specific, you have research questions that will answer that research problem, and you have a methodology that will let you do it. You should also expect revisions. Most committee members in our programs will provide you revisions verbally and in a written form by providing you the draft of the thesis proposal with all of their edits and comments in it. You may be angry or unhappy when you receive strong critical comments, especially during the defense of your proposal. Expect that you're going to receive criticism and that it's going to lead to more work on your dissertation than maybe you or your advisor previously thought you needed. Maintain a positive attitude when receiving that criticism, because understand that your committee is only trying to better you. There are rare incidents in which a student proposal passes with few comments or revisions required. The committee may require you to make specific edits to the content and or revise specific content for general flow and substance. The best solution for anyone whose work is being reviewed is just to stop any emotional attachment to the work and view it dispassionately. Criticism is a gift of sorts. It forces you to consider outside opinions, and when we work through them, the effect is increasingly pleasing. You'll have a better document. This is especially true at proposal defense because any tangles that are found there only serve to make your data collection and analysis better. It will make it easier to finish, and you will have a stronger research study because of the way they challenge you to think. Keep in mind that these edits and revisions are purposefully meant to focus on the study so that you engage in quality research and the end result is a quality product that you and your respective university is proud of. I want to address a few of the post-proposal defense steps and things to consider after you've passed your thesis defense. Immediately after passing your proposal defense, it's important to meet with your chair to discuss the next steps to continue progressing successfully in the master's thesis process. And shortly after the proposal defense, schedule maybe 1 or 2 hours with your committee chairperson to debrief on the edits, if any are needed, and to outline those next steps. And then as you're working on those edits, be sure to set up, whenever possible, an ongoing pattern of communication so that you are sending revised drafts and then being able to follow up if you did not exactly understand the revisions required. Based on the amount of edits and revisions you need, consult your chair to see if there needs to be an adjustment to your timeline for your study completion. This adjustment really just depends on the amount of work needed to make the necessary revisions and the time that you have to commit to make those revisions. There is a give and take, and that this is a master's thesis proposal. We expect good research, but it is not a dissertation. So we will maybe scale down your project, maybe we'll ask you to do something a little differently, but it's all in the perspective of what we think would be best for the workload of a master's degree student and the time that you have to complete that project. Now, once your chair has approved your revised thesis proposal, a very important next step is to secure the university's Institutional Review Board approval to collect and analyze the data associated with your study. Following the defense proposal, each university has really specific requirements for getting approval of your proposal and how to proceed with the study. And there is a proposal defense form that has to be signed and dated by members of the committee, noting a satisfactory or unsatisfactory proposal defense, and all of that will get filed through the university. In this presentation, I've talked to you a little bit about how to prepare for the proposal prior to the day. I talked to you about delivering the 15 to 20 minute research presentation. And then I've also addressed the post-proposal steps. If you have any questions or comments, you can find me at kelsey.hall@usu.edu or Canvas inbox.